Welcome back to Close Up. Two Democratic candidates are squaring off in a primary to challenge Governor Chris Sununu. Last week, we spoke with Executive Counselor Andrew Volinsky, and this morning we have Senate Majority Leader and candidate Dan Feltes. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Thank you, Adam. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So let's start with the pandemic. You've been very critical of the governor and the state's handling of the COVID-19 crisis. What would you be doing differently if you were in the corner office?
Well, first things first, we got to protect senior citizens. That never happened under Governor Sununu. We have among the worst in the nation crisis on COVID-19 in nursing homes, Adam. Over 280 Granite Staters have been lost to COVID-19 in our nursing homes, whole floors in some cases. It's a heartbreaking situation. And for almost 2 months, Chris Sununu didn't do anything. And the first thing he did is go out to a no-bid contract to a corporate campaign donor to do some testing at some of the facilities that was unacceptable and insufficient. And we have a terrible crisis that's in our nursing homes right now. No one expected 0 cases, but no one expected this. And inaction and then delay and insufficient action led to it. And so we passed legislation last week to deal with nursing homes. We need to move forward in dealing with that problem. PPE is a problem, especially for small businesses. That was provided at one point to our small businesses by this administration, and Sununu took it away. We have to provide and support our small businesses with PPE. And we also have to move forward on testing. New Hampshire is among the last in New England, second to last usually, and back of the pack on testing. We're New Hampshire, we can do better than that. And finally, Adam, we need to support our healthcare system. We had the highest healthcare costs in the nation prior to COVID-19 under Chris Sununu. It's only getting worse, and access to reproductive healthcare services is critical. We've spoken out and encouraged the governor to dedicate CARES Act money to support reproductive healthcare disproportionately affecting women, disproportionately affecting women of color. He has refused to do it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's in a tough primary battle with Karen Testerman. It's not clear, but he says he's pro-choice around election time. All his actions are to the contrary. So we need to move forward on these key issues, and this can't wait for the next election, Adam. We have to solve these problems right now.
So in terms of being able to take action more quickly on long-term care, let's rewind to that March-April time period. If the PPE wasn't necessarily in place yet, and you had top leaders at HHS like the commissioner and the state epidemiologist saying we need to focus on the hospital system to make sure it doesn't get overwhelmed, how would you have known in that moment to immediately shift away from that stance and towards long-term care?
I don't think it's an either or. We should have supported the healthcare system overall, including nursing homes and assisted living facilities and long-term care facilities, and that just didn't happen under Sununu. He didn't make it a priority. And so, look, I was a legal aid lawyer for about 10 years, right out of law school, then take a job as a corporate attorney. I worked at New Hampshire Legal Assistance, helped people during the last economic crisis get back up on their feet, battled against Wall Street banks for closing on people all across New Hampshire during the last economic crisis, and represented seniors in assisted living and nursing homes, and seeing how they are amongst our most vulnerable. And to not do the testing and the PPE in nursing homes, and to not take action basically 2 months down the road, first action Sununu took, that has led to one of the worst crises in the country in nursing homes. And so, again, this is a problem that needs to be resolved right now. I can't wait till the next election. And I'm hopeful that Governor Sununu will sign our legislation, House Bill 1246, that actually deals with this crisis in our nursing homes.
So let's look ahead then. Take us point by point what you would be doing as governor in January 2021 if there is a supercluster outbreak at UNH.
So obviously, we'd have to listen to folks on the ground, public health officials, CDC, and take aggressive and proactive steps immediately. That's what needed to be done here, and that's what we need to do moving forward. But we also, Adam, need to be conscious of the fact that we are in a situation right now where we're an economic mess. We have not only the highest healthcare costs in the nation right here in New Hampshire under Chris Sununu, we have the second worst opioid epidemic in the country under Chris Sununu, the second worst treatment capacity to deal with it. He's vetoed every bill on addiction treatment services of substance that we put forward, bipartisan bills. We have to get out of this mess in a way that acknowledges the problems that we face, ordinary people, and working families who are struggling right now. And every piece of legislation, whether it's paid family and medical leave insurance, which Chris Sununu opposes, whether it's job training, addiction treatment services, there is so much work to do. And what's at stake in this election is whether or not we're going to look out for working people and working families and seniors, or just, in some cases under Chris Sununu, in many cases under Chris Sununu, kowtow to corporate special interests and people at the top. We got to do better. We got to do better. And how we get out of this mess is going to be indicative of not just, this generation, but our kids, Adam, my kids, Iris and Josie, two amazing daughters, their future, our collective future. It's a pivotal moment if we're going to work for a real recovery that works for ordinary folks, working families, not just those at the top, not the same old pay-to-play politics that Chris Sununu is engaged in. We got to look out for ordinary people, and we need real reform, too, to make sure that happens.
So last week, your primary opponent had to apologize for using words like unqualified and tokenism in relation to black nominees nominated to state positions before the Executive Council. One of those nominees said the Executive Council Democrats engaged in, quote, structural political racism by denying him a hearing. Black Lives Matter in Manchester and Nashua has backed him up in that contention. You've said you believe that Eddie Edwards, that nominee, is qualified for the job. But what about the bigger issue? Do you believe that the Executive Council Democrats were engaged in structural political racism?
Well, I don't think that they had racially motivated intent. I think we have to have this as a part of a broader conversation. Eddie Edwards, as I said, was qualified, and everybody deserves a fair hearing and have their voice to be heard, including Eddie Edwards. But more generally, we got to be thoughtful and reflective on the language we use in this discussion, all of us. And we need to be thoughtful and respectful of, the positions and perspectives of people from communities of color, people from different perspectives. We have to have everybody together if we're going to lift up this conversation and make real progress. We've taken some steps, Adam, on the broader issue here in the state. Last week in the state Senate under House Bill 1645, we banned chokeholds. We did mandatory police reporting of police misconduct. We did psychological exams. We did comprehensive criminal justice reform and bail reform, which affects communities of color. And you know what? We haven't heard Governor Sununu say he's going to sign that bill. I hope he does. But as governor, we need to move forward on all of these issues, which is why I will create, as governor, a director of racial equity that will fight to include people in state government, be more representative in state government, address and proactively address systemic issues within the state. That director, much like what was formed in Vermont, will work on these systemic issues, and we need to create that office and create that director in the governor's office. That's what I'll do as governor. What
about your own campaign? Do you have representation? Are there people of color working on your campaign?
At this point, no, but we do have, we actively, recruit folks to work on the effort, and we have a lot of wonderful supporters, including Woolard Lett, former chair of Manchester NAACP. We just did a Facebook Live conversation with a co-chair of Manchester Black Lives Matter and Minister Ari Meretazan on racial issues, and we continue to reach out and do the best we can. Everybody needs to work hard and do better, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we'll continue to do. And look, as a former legal aid lawyer, I've worked combating housing discrimination in the state. And worked hard for years in that capacity. Didn't take a job as a corporate lawyer after graduating law school. Worked to fight for ordinary Granite Staters, seniors and veterans, and worked to combat housing discrimination. There's so much work that we have to do, and we have to listen to people on the ground. Really, truly listen to the protesters, to people marching for change, and take concrete action. It's not enough to create commissions. We have to take concrete action and really move forward together.
Well, what about some concrete action here? Obviously, law enforcement accountability is going to be a huge topic for whoever the next governor is. Do you believe police officers in New Hampshire should lose their qualified immunity that protects them from civil lawsuits?
I think it really depends on how that legislation is crafted. That's been an ongoing debate. It's been a debate at the State House, and certainly I'm open to that concept. We have to also look at broader concepts too, Adam, including the reality that expanding access to mental health care and substance use disorder treatment services is critical to relieve pressure on police. It's the right thing to do for our families, and it mitigates some of the highest healthcare costs in the nation. Actually, we have the highest healthcare costs in the nation because the most costly way to treat behavioral health services is in the emergency room. And that ends up being cost spread over all of us, our families, our businesses. So we need to get beyond Sununu's vetoes on addiction treatment services and recently cutting that out of the budget. We need to move forward and really tackling the behavioral health crisis in this state. That's good for police. That's good for our communities. That's good for all of us, and that's good to reduce healthcare costs.
So let's move to climate change. You support the Granite Bridge natural gas pipeline. Many in your party argue now is the time to rapidly transition away from fossil fuels. So why support a project that will expand the state's carbon footprint?
Well, the connection between two existing pipelines is purported to meet the low-income and heating need in the wintertime. And look, I'm not going to cut people off of their natural gas heat. That's just not a position I'm going to take. In fact, as a legal aid lawyer, working with folks, Adam, including during and after the last economic crisis, the Great Recession, I represented folks who got their heat cut off by the company, got their heat maybe cut off by the landlord, and actually had to heat their home with their electric oven open. So I'm cognizant of and sensitive to the notion that we have to meet that basic need. And the vast, overwhelming majority of Granite Staters, just as a practical reality, heat their homes with either natural gas or home heat. What we need is a comprehensive clean energy strategy that transitions people off of natural gas and home heat, gives them the opportunity to do the heat pumps, the solar hot water heating, transition to solar. And what we have seen, Adam, is time and time again under Chris Sununu, he has vetoed clean energy legislation. He has vetoed it 8 times last year, most of it bipartisan. Our electric rates have gone up because of Chris Sununu's vetoes. We have failed to take our responsibility here in New Hampshire because of those vetoes, and we failed to open up and unlock the access to solar savings for our homeowners and for all our people, and property tax savings because of Chris Sununu's veto. So the barrier and the impediment to clean energy in the state of New Hampshire is Chris Sununu. And if he gets a third term, as he wants, a rare third term as governor, that will continue to be the case. I mean, his brother is a fossil fuel industry lobbyist. When he vetoed my bill on solar, he said it was, quote, crony capitalism for the solar industry, unquote. So and he's a climate change denier. He said the jury's out on climate change. So let's not be confused. The impediment to clean energy in the state of New Hampshire is Chris Sununu.
All right, Senator Feltes, thank you for joining us on Close Up. We'll see you out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Adam. Take care.